The most sinister thing is the boring problem. Like, if the thing isn't capturing your attention, why keep watching it?
I know it's a generic redemption story. Isn't there some value in that?
I just kept thinking, so what, throughout the entire thing.
The so what is that you're not speaking Russian right now. How about that? That's the so what. The mood of what it was like to be an American in 1987 versus how people generally feel in 2022. You can't tap those same notes now.
The first thing I thought is, why make people feel bad for having an interest in the thing that you have dedicated your life towards?
Wouldn't it be incredible to see a dodgeball match between 20 creators?
This is actually a really good idea. As long as I was on Marquez Brownlee's team.
Yeah, he's banned from the sport. I'm banning him.
Hey, welcome to the Create Unknown, the home of Make Something Mean Something. It is TCU's Day. We are here live every single Tuesday, 6 p.m. Eastern on Discord. Join our Discord. We would love to have you. It is free. You can chat all week about anything that you like or anything that you dislike. And there's going to be a little bit of that on this episode. We don't have a guest, but we do have a battle. A war will be waged. I am Kevin Lieber, and with me, as always, is Matthew Tabor.
The best part is that in the episode chat right now, Andy, who's been around for years, everybody knows Andy, he's in the cockpit of a plane right now. Did you see that?
Yeah.
He's got pictures like with the instrument panel in front of him. I mean, that's commitment for this episode, isn't it?
It is, because this episode is all about, this is such a random topic, but it'll be about the movie Top Gun, the original, not this movie that's coming out soon, Maverick, or whatever it's called. Not that movie, the first one from the 80s, Top Gun, because, Matt and I tend to agree on a whole lot. And there was something that happened recently in which we found out we disagree strongly on the movie Top Gun. And I think that it'll be interesting to figure out exactly. I'm interested in figuring out what your position supporting it is. I watched it recently for the first time and really did not enjoy that experience. So I think that we should both kind of go through. I mean, I'll certainly go through what I didn't like about it, but I'd love to hear what it is that you're attracted to about this movie so that I can understand, almost like probing some sort of animal or something and trying to understand how it lives. How does someone like a Top Gun movie? I don't quite understand.
Well, first I have a question about your dislike of it, because I want to understand the degree to which you dislike it.
Okay.
So would you recommend this movie to somebody else, as in you personally think it sucks, but you think other people will like it? Or would you not bother to recommend that anybody watch it because you think it's irredeemably bad to the point that it should be forgotten?
The latter. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend anybody watch it.
Okay.
And I thought about that, because we decided to do this episode, a week or two ago. So I've been thinking about it on and off during that period. And it's something that I wouldn't recommend people watch. And I even thought about the fact that I would say during this episode that if anybody is on the fence about watching this, my opinion and my suggestion would be to not bother. I would not suggest anybody watch it, simply because I think it's a poorly constructed and boring. It's just a boring movie.
I think it's a necessary watch. So I'm on the flip side of that. But okay, so we can start with the structure problems or the boring problems. Which do you think is more sinister?
The most sinister thing is the boring problem, because, if a movie is not entertaining, if it's not engaging, if you're not like continually interested in what happens next, that's just not going to be a good movie unless it has some other element to it that's so good, like the visuals or something are so stunning that you want to keep watching it. For the most part, like if the thing isn't capturing your attention, why keep watching it?
Okay. So at what point were you bored watching the movie? When did this kick in?
I think pretty early-ish on. Certainly not in the beginning. In the beginning, I was all in because for a few reasons. One of which is like I just love '80s stuff. I'm a kid of the '80s. I grew up in that time period. I've watched so many '80s movies. I'm a huge fan of '80s action movies, whether it's like Schwarzenegger or Stallone or Van Damme. Oh my gosh, when I was a little kid, like Van Damme actually was my guy, not Schwarzenegger and not Stallone. I loved Bloodsport and Cyborg and Lionheart, all of those Van Damme movies I loved. So I was stoked to watch Top Gun because I had realized I'd never seen it. And it's literally one of the most famous 80s movies of all time. If you Google popular 80s movies, I swear to you, Top Gun comes up first. It comes up first in Google search results. Is Top Gun is number one.
Universally beloved, yes. So, okay, so if for anybody, it is. So for anybody who hasn't seen it or they haven't seen it in a while, it starts off with like an operational montage showing this aircraft carrier and, the people on it. And the soundtrack is quite good, this ominous music and all of that. And it goes right to the plane exercise. I mean, there's stuff flying around, and it gets Maverick right into trouble in this way. Like when I say Pulp Fiction, I mean the actual genre of writing, not the movie, but the old style Pulp Fiction stuff. It's like put your character in trouble, then put him deeper in trouble, and then get him even deeper in trouble. All in like 2,000 words. And that all happens, and it's really intense and exciting. And he develops a rivalry internally with Iceman in that time. That's like 20 minutes in. All of this stuff happens. And I was thinking, how can you not be primed at that point to want to continue to see the movie?
That was probably around the point I started to get bored, quite honestly. It was probably about half an hour in. Maybe it was when the love interest was introduced and that subplot started kind of developing. The big problem to me was that there seemed to be no big problem in the entire movie. Like the thrust of the movie is that, Tom Cruise, and obviously spoiler warning for anyone who hasn't seen Top Gun. Tom Cruise plays Maverick. His father was a fighter pilot. And he becomes one, and he ends up going to Top Gun, which is this like special training program. And a little bit kind of into him getting to Top Gun and into this program, I'm just like, what is the goal? Like, what are we fighting for? What is his conflict? What can he not get that he wants? Is it just to graduate from this school? I don't care about that. That's not enough. What problem is this guy trying to overcome? It seemed like nothing.
Well, I think there are a couple there. I mean, first, the conflict is Cold War. Like that one's there from the beginning. If the characters themselves don't interest you at all, at least you've got a good like US versus Soviet and Soviet proxies plot happening.
It's barely happening. I would call that like a veneer on the film. It's like barely existent in it.
Yeah. I think that, I mean, it's cool how it's a product of the time. And this came out in 1986 and it was just about time to kind of start thinking that you're winning this. It was pretty obvious there. And there's a focus on like the tech stuff that I think it's an interesting time there too, because like you can see from the flight scenes, it's a bit technological, but not everything is like easy mode video game. It still is obvious that primarily it's about the pilot's skill and all of that stuff. That's a neat element to me, and I don't think Top Gun would have been as interesting if it came out, in like 2005, when that line between human and tech in the actual plane aspect was different. That's enough for me to carry it through. But I think that the conflict on it is really, he's kind of fighting against himself on this, because he's got this overconfidence that teeters on disaster and occasionally topples into it, and is super flawed. I mean, there's confidence, and then there's arrogance, and he keeps pushing on that to the detriment of himself. When he does the first flyby of the tower, he gets dressed down for it, absolutely berated. And it doesn't occur to him until after that that Goose is affected by the really dumb thing that he did. And Goose has to have a heart-to-heart with him that's like, hey, this is my life, and I have a family, and you can't jeopardize it. Like, I want to just get through here. So, yeah, he's got incredible talent, incredible confidence, incredible instincts, and is so reckless with it that, he harms himself and others, or at least has the capacity to do that. And overshadowing that is the father's legacy. That for whatever reason, which they start dotting the film with references to this, building up to the end, for whatever reason, he's got this shadow of his father's legacy that he believes is different than what the official story is. But he doesn't seem to have any family. I mean, you see Goose's wife and kid in several scenes, but at no point is where he's from referenced, whether his mother is still alive. When his father died, but that's it. Is he an only child? Does he have any aunts and uncles? He has nobody at all in this movie. Just his own ability and his father's tainted legacy. So plowing onward with those two burdens, I think, is the conflict for me.
Okay. Yeah, I find both of those conflicts really thin and not very compelling. The fact that you don't know much about him, I feel like I didn't know much about anybody in the movie. It all just seemed so superficial. Iceman, what does he have, like 5 lines in the whole movie? He's supposed to be this like big rival to Maverick, and he is almost completely inconsequential. He's just kind of there sometimes, like a few times. It's like sort of his nemesis, I guess. But everything just seems so like, and then this happened, and then this happens. It was like, it reminded me of Matt Stone and Trey Parker. They had that old thing about how to, like, what bad writing is like. Mm-hmm. And they basically said that, like, a bad story will go, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. Whereas good writing will be like, this happened, however, that happened, but this happened. And to me, Top Gun, it was like watching the quintessential this happened, and then this happens, and then this happens screenplay. And by the end of it, I was like, I literally just finished watching it just so that I knew, like, I could say I watched the whole thing. But like, I almost laughed out loud when they shoehorned the battle at the end into the movie, as if it was like, oh yeah, crap, we need to have some kind of like, big conclusion, some big battle. Yeah, let's just have the guy come in during the graduation ceremony and be like, oh yeah, LOL, we're being attacked and you guys have to go take care of it. Like, okay, here we go. It was like such a Deus ex machina, like nothing in the whole movie is set up. There's no payoff to anything. It's not like, oh, earlier in the movie, like the only setup and payoff I could even think of in the whole movie is when, in the very beginning, the dude kind of gets his nerves shattered and he can't fly anymore. And later on in the film, the same thing happens to Maverick. He gets his nerves shattered, after Goose dies, and he's like kind of unable to fly. Aside from that, I couldn't think of another instance in where like something earlier in the film paid off later directly. Like you needed to pay attention to something because it came back around later. That does not a thing. Like, let me give you a great example of this, because I watched The Quick and the Dead afterwards.
Yeah.
And The Quick and the Dead is a Sam Raimi Western from the 90s with an all-star cast, Leonardo DiCaprio, Gene Hackman, Sharon Stone. So
I had a great night out with Lance Henriksen once. Did I ever tell you that?
No.
Oh, well, that's another time then. But yeah, so I was a big Quick and the Dead fan.
Yes, Lance Henriksen. All right, so you're familiar with that movie. That movie has a great payoff where earlier in the film, the main baddie, the bad guy, Gene Hackman, has somebody tied up with a noose standing on a chair, and he's shooting out the legs of the chair in order to make, the chair. It's what's his name? It's Gladiator. Russell Crowe.
Russell Crowe.
So Russell Crowe is standing on this chair. He's got a noose around his neck, and Gene Hackman is shooting out the legs of the chair to kill him. He's teetering, on the brink of dying, of the chair collapsing, and Sharon Stone shoots him down to save his life. This happens pretty early on in the film.
Right.
Throughout the film, Sharon Stone wants to kill Gene Hackman, who's the main bad guy, because something involving her father, you don't really know what, but, he's responsible for her father's death, and that carries most of the film. You get little drips and drabs of, like, her wanting to get revenge. The big payoff at the end is that this exact scenario is what happened with Gene Hackman and her father. And then the plot twist is that when she was a child at the time, Gene Hackman has her father hanging from a rope, standing on a chair, and Gene Hackman gives her the gun and says, if you can shoot the rope, you can save your father's life.
Yes.
He gives her the opportunity to save her dad. And she's literally just a tiny little girl. She goes to shoot the rope, and she shoots him in the forehead and kills him. Mm-hmm. That's an incredible payoff. From the beginning of the film to the end, you go, oh my gosh, that is incredible. It tied everything together so well. And I watched that movie after Top Gun and instantly was like, that is great storytelling, and Top Gun is garbage storytelling. It's just a poorly written, boring movie.
I think the forces at play are completely different. So, for example, I think a lot of people watch Top Gun and want to be, on some level, Pete Mitchell. He's a good-looking guy who's extremely talented. He's really confident. People like him. He's literally the life of the party if he wants to be. You see more and more that it kind of swings between him being an asshole and him being a very decent guy. So, like, the interesting thing about Iceman, despite not having a whole lot of lines, is that he's right about everything he says. So you have the hero's rival here. How often is the hero's rival 100% on the money and accurate with their problems with the hero? Like, that doesn't happen very often, but Iceman is totally right that Pete Mitchell is a dangerous person. He doesn't do things by the book or even safely, and that's a problem. So you have the guy that you kind of want to be like, and then the guy that you don't want to be like. And then he has the balls to do the singing scene, and you kind of want to be like him again. When he actually does go have a dinner date with the woman, he's not insanely arrogant or cocky. He's just listening to her talk, and he's a decent guy again. And that tells you, like, hey, when you thought 20 minutes ago that maybe you shouldn't be rooting for this guy, now here's the confirmation that you were totally right. It's okay to want to be him, and it's okay to root for him. And then Maverick as a character constantly does more things to make you wonder if that was the right move. If you're still totally on Team Maverick. But that's the thing that's driving that movie, not so much a singularly eventful story. Like Quick and Dead is a great example, because you pull this backstory that involves multiple characters, and it's it's crazy. Like that was amazing. Whereas this is really guy who's kind of a jerk, goes to elite training thing that is fraught with some troubles that rock his confidence. Can he pull out of it? There's not a whole lot more to the story than that.
Yeah.
But it's pretty classic on some levels, hero's journey stuff, right down to having the mentor pop in, which is Tom Skerritt. I forget his rank in the film, but Tom Skerritt's his real name, the guy with the mustache, older guy. He unlocks the mystery of what happened to Maverick's father in a way that helps push him through the grief that he's going through when Goose dies. And yeah, with the romance going on too, that's a sidebar, but it's also two people who are very similar with personalities, figuring that out and making it work. And that's intriguing. That's just an intriguing romance as far as those things go. Cause it's not like Rocky and Adrian where it's like, you couldn't get two people further from from the same as those two. With Charlie and Pete Mitchell, like these are both very similar people. The woman is just a bit more sensible and mature. She has a handle on her confidence and all of that. But substantially, they're the same.
Yeah, I just didn't care, man. I didn't care about the dad subplot. And when Tom Skerritt tells him, it was basically like, you know how the whole time you thought your dad was a bad guy? Actually, he was pretty cool. That to me was like, okay, I don't care.
He thinks his dad was a good guy and that the official version wasn't, and that it was unfair. And so Tom Skerritt confirms that unfairness, which
did nothing for me. Like I was like, okay.
Yeah. I mean,
there were no stakes to it. There were no stakes to that subplot. What were the stakes?
The stakes is that it validates that he's not like the result of a tainted legacy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I'm stumbling here because I'm trying to think of what an analogy to that would be. But like, imagine if you were the son of a murderer or something like that. Like, that's not a reflection on you and your personality, and life can go on regardless. But like, wouldn't it be better to find out like DNA evidence that he didn't actually do it? Like, even after he died, wouldn't you feel better about the truth kind of proving you right and not having any shame there? Because that was part of it. It wasn't just like he screwed up or something like that. It sounded like the official version was somehow shameful. Like, not only did it not happen as like he wasn't heroic or anything like that. It was like, no, he did something wrong, because at one point the guy tells him that, points out that his name is not the best, in the Navy. So there's got to be something negative attached to it. So it's not only the positive part, it's eliminating whatever negative, shameful thing was a part of that. And I think that's a tremendous relief for him, because for whatever reason, he's carried that burden and at times been driven by it. And that's probably good. But it's been an oppressive thing. And at the very end, and I'm not trying to skip through that to the end, but it's relevant. The end of the movie, he throws dog tags out into the water. You can't zoom in and see whose they are. Are they his? Are they his father's? Are they Goose's? It's not clear what he's letting go of there, but something, he's letting go of something. But the revelation in the truth about his father was a bigger deal to me than it was to you.
Well, the whole thing is clearly a bigger deal to you than it was to me, because I kept waiting for like something to happen that was interesting. And to me, nothing happened in the whole thing. That I was just kind of waiting for it to be over. And so it's clear to me that like I was not invested in this dude as a character. So this is like a character study, I guess. it's just weird, man. It's weird for me to go into this movie Top Gun that's just like iconic action movie, and then it ends up being ostensibly this bizarre mix of 80s action flick and like slow drama, like slow character study, I guess, drama, where the film itself doesn't have normal movie beats. And instead, it's just kind of this slow burn of like, let's see how, Maverick's adjusting. Like, okay. Like, that's not interesting to me. I don't care how he's adjusting. What are we doing here?
I think if you don't see it as him constantly constantly trying to ruin himself, and just in a perpetual struggle there to perform well while the wheels threaten to come off and sometimes do, and then making it back from that, then there's not a lot there, and you have a bunch of long scenes in between the plane fights.
Right.
Yeah. So if you reject that early or don't think it's there, then I can see it being a long movie, because it trends toward 2 hours. I don't know what the runtime is, but it's got to be like an hour 50. It's pretty close. Because they do take a lot of time on things like the romance part.
A lot of time on that romance, which was killing me. I was like, this is so boring. And I know that sounds like immature. It sounds idiotic and immature. I think probably a lot of my argument comes across as idiotic and immature. But from my perspective, I was sitting down to watch like the #1 action blockbuster of all time. And I'm sitting here instead, like watching this guy, like, is he going to kiss her? What scene is he finally going to kiss her? We've had 9 scenes of him almost going to kiss her. Like, this blows.
But think about that kiss, because 5 minutes before, like a creep, he's following her into the bathroom and making sex jokes. So that was actually an intriguing thing to me, is that he's kind of I trying to think what word I want to commit to with this, but like, he's got some Me Too energy with being so aggressive on that, what starts as a cute singing scene. He's really pushing this. Mm-hmm. And then after that, he completely pulls back from being like that. He's totally normal and decent. He's even like embarrassed and ashamed of being late to the date when she tells him on the note 5:30 sharp. He gets wrapped up in volleyball and he's late, whatever. Which I don't understand why he's late. That's one of the gripes I had there, is in the volleyball scene, he's checking his watch like every 10 seconds. They make a point to show you that he is checking his watch and counting the time down to be on time for this date. And then somehow he's late anyway, even when he leaves and says he can't play another game. So I don't understand why he's late, but he feels bad about it. And the guy from the night before, or whenever it was, wouldn't have cared. He wouldn't have felt bad about that. He would have been very aggressive. He would have been trying to sleep with her. No, that part where it's like, is he finally going to kiss her, that drags on forever? That is an intriguing element to this, is that, wow, this is a real thing for him, because he's not treating it like animalistically.
Yeah. All right. I don't know. To me, it was like, I would love to drink bleach right now. I cannot believe this is what this movie is. It was shocking to me. The whole thing was really, really shocking to me. Just I suppose my expectations going into it, and then actually watching it, it was just so different than I suppose I imagined. And maybe that was like a major part of my disappointment with it. But yeah, I don't know, man. I thought it was so boring, the whole thing.
You don't think there's any value in like, I know it's a generic redemption story, but he does get to the point where he quits and then gets it back together and then, behaves heroically. Isn't there some value in that?
I don't know. I'm struggling a bit to communicate how contrived I felt the whole movie to be. Like, I just felt like these guys took their first ever screenwriting class and this is what they crapped out. Top Gun. And we're going to plug the love story in so that, when they go, so it can be a date movie. And then we'll plug this, action scene at the end against the Russians so that there's some sort of climax. It all just felt so contrived and like a rough draft of a movie.
I thought it was completely the opposite. And I want to say a specific example of this. In that beginning montage, when he's up in the plane, he does this inversion where he's upside down and directly above the MiG. He flips off the pilot. Goose takes the Polaroid photo of it. And it's funny and kind of impressive and whatever. I mean, it's a good sequence. But then when it slows down and he's actually in kind of the classroom and they're analyzing that move and they start to talk about how it's not possible. And he says, yes, it is. And they go through this. That reinforces that what you just saw 5 minutes ago was actually a really big deal. You aren't in a position to understand how crazy that maneuver was until however many minutes later they analyze it in that classroom setting to reinforce the craziness of all of it. And I thought, wow, that's kind of awesome that you see a thing and then get the reinforcement that it was a much bigger deal than you even realized, in a way that tells you more about really what's happening in the movie and also more about the character of Maverick. And that little detail, I'm like, oh, that was a really good way to advance things that I think it took some thought and talent to put into the script. So the things that bored you to death and you thought were contrived and unnecessary, some of those were things that I thought made it singularly good.
Yeah, I just kept thinking, so what? Throughout the entire thing. I don't know. Just like,
so what? Is that you're not speaking Russian right now? How about that? That's the so what.
I wish that is the movie that Top Gun is some big battle against some Russians. And there's like, like Rocky IV. Now that's a great movie where who the bad guy is. There's a reason why he's fighting him. He kills his best friend. He has to train unbelievably in Siberia because this guy's a machine and he'll murder you. Throughout that movie, where we're going. Throughout Top Gun, I was like, I don't know where we're going and I don't know why I should care. I feel like I'm going nowhere. Yeah. I'm sitting in flight school for 2 hours and this guy is trying to date his teacher. So what?
Put down your can of Hyper Hydro Monster and your Crimson Berry White Claw. It's time to rethink the beverages in your life. We drink a tremendous amount of tea, working on videos, recording the podcast, but we don't drink normie NPC tea. We drink cultured and refined anime tea from the Dragon's Treasure. They've got a gunpowder green tea called Space Cowboy. If you've listened to this podcast before, you know why Kevin likes it. And I used to chew gunpowder green tea leaves when I played baseball in the 90s. I love the stuff. Dragonwell Z, Samurai Chai Plu, black teas, herbals. The Dragon's Treasure describes itself as a haven for anime and tea lovers for a reason. They've even got a tea called Uwu. It's got apple bits and cocoa nibs. It's crazy. I bought the 60 tea sampler pack as soon as I could. I wanted to try everything. It's that good. And when you order from the Dragon's Treasure using the code CREATE, you'll get 10% off your order. That's 10% off using the code CREATE at thedragonstreasure.com. The link's in the description. Look, find me another place that sells Russian caravan tea with a name like, and then everything changed when the Fire Nation attacked. You can't. TheDragonstreasure.com, 10% off when you enter the code CREATE at checkout. The link's in the description below. Get brewing, Space Cowboys. I do want to say something on the technical side, which is there were not a lot of great flight movies before this. There were good flight movies around World War II. I think the planes themselves made it a bit easier, and expectations of what you'd see in a movie were okay. Like you could have a whole lot of very basic cockpit cameras and the movie's going to be okay. I think of something like, I think The Longest Day has some of it. Tora 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 is one. Midway. All the World War II movies have flying that's appropriate there. But I think by this time, adequately showing flying was not much of a thing in Hollywood. I was trying to think about other movies of that era, like if anything came before it, because Iron Eagle also came out in 1986. That was not very good at all. That's just not a great movie, but it's a flying movie with engaging flying. It hit me that for general audiences, this was almost like Star Wars level amazing, like X-Wing fighters, but actually real. It was, I don't know, what, 7, 8, 9 years after the original and Empire Strikes Back and a couple of years after Return of the Jedi. But still, it was like, oh, here's the really cool flying stuff we've been seeing in Star Wars movies, but it's what's actually happening. The footage is totally real. This isn't science fiction. This is crazy power and complexity that exists in this world because we're in a conflict. That was really neat. And I think Top Gun totally raised the bar on things like a flight movie, a plane movie, a tank movie. I don't know about the logistics. I mean, I do think that with war movies, there's a logistical bias toward infantry and ground soldiers because everything else is so shockingly difficult and expensive to pull off when you start trying to film with tanks and planes and anything like that. Even cavalry in an older war movie. So I think that much of Hollywood shied away from the non-ground stuff. And Top Gun was like, oh, you can do this in a really entertaining way that people love and make it worth all the time and trouble of dealing with the planes.
Right. Yeah. Well, let me say some nice things about Top Gun. And then I'll say some more negative things. And then we can get to Neil deGrasse Tyson's moon tweets. Nice things. The cast is excellent. Tom Cruise is great.
Yes.
Val Kilmer is great. It was a huge breakout role for him. I love Tom Skerritt is great.
There's literally not one role, even Meg Ryan, there's not one role in that film that I would recast. The casting
Meg Ryan is great. Anthony Edwards is great.
Yep.
The bald guy from Back to the Future, who is the principal, I don't know his name. He is excellent. Perfect. Yeah. The casting and all the acting are excellent in that movie. Yeah. The music is excellent. It's totally iconic. It's the most famous element of Top Gun is the music. The music has lasted decades. The influence of that music has lasted decades. And not just
it's scored well too.
Well,
like the actual scoring of the film is quite good.
Yeah. I was going to say not only the famous, Highway to the Danger Zone, but the main theme that kind of repeats throughout is really excellent.
Get Beato on that. I want the breakdown of this entire soundtrack, start to finish.
You've got the Love and Feeling. That song is perfect. The music is so good. That's it. That's it for good things. So, but I will give I'll play devil's advocate to myself a little bit on this and say that I can totally understand loving this movie for a couple of reasons. One is vibes. Like if you love the vibes and vibes, of course, include the music, it includes the shots, it includes the costumes. So like, the freaking like flight suits and like his cool leather jacket and him like, on his motorcycle, like all of those vibes are really cool. Excellent.
Yeah, and it was a neat era to be in too, because like you remember people wearing the Top Gun hats and the hats where the gold rope would be in the front above the bill.
Yeah.
It just, people really liked some of the aesthetics from this film.
Yeah. That's what I mean. The aesthetics, the vibes. Yeah. It's a lot of it is so cool. It just is between the costumes, the clothes, the music, and of course the freaking fighter jets. It's like that's as cool as things get, basically. So
yeah, pretty much.
So that part, I think, carries a tremendous amount of water, and that's fine. Like maybe it carries 99% of the water, and you love that water so much that you love the movie. For me, that wasn't enough. It didn't strike a chord with me, and perhaps I will also say this. Although Ben is young and he loves this movie, Ben W. So he grew up kind of with the vibes of that oversaturated. But I was going to say that perhaps me watching it in 2022 is a lot different than watching it when I was a kid, because I don't know. The things that lasted about that movie I've seen a trillion times. The things that haven't lasted, I think, didn't last for a reason, and that's the plot of the movie. It blows. And I think there's a reason why it didn't spawn a bunch of sequels. It didn't really have like a huge influence. You didn't see like a huge spell of fighter jet movies after this. But the legacy it did create was really kind of in the vibes of the movie, which is a weird thing.
I think that's hard for younger people right now to understand. I'm trying not to get too meta about this, but the mood of what it was like to be an American in 1987 versus how people generally feel in 2022, rather. They're two completely different national moods. I don't quite know. I don't quite know how to put this in a way that. Yeah, I mean, it is just crazy what the social and cultural differences are now compared to then. And so many of the things that movie speaks to and the psychological elements that it taps are not only gone now in many cases, but the pendulum has swung actively to the opposite.
Yeah.
There are a lot of reasons for that, like way too many to list. You could have a podcast that ran 1,000 episodes just on this theme. But a difference between now and then is at that time, we had a very real threat. There was a clear enemy with a track record of opposition going on decades and perpetual uncertainty about what was going to happen there. Regardless of where people fell politically, that was the reality. The question is this a good thing or a bad thing? Not does it exist. So it seems really out of place now. A lot of it does, because all of those moods are so different. And I'm really interested in what the sequel is about. I think that might come out on Memorial Day weekend. So in a week or two here. But I don't know what you do, even with the plot that I thought was fine. I understand why you didn't. But you can't tap those same notes now that you could tap on a film like this in 1986. So what do you tap? And that's, I am
Matt,
really interested in what they end up doing.
The perfect example is that they never, ever talk about the Russians being bad guys. It's just assumed. Like they spend no time setting up the threat of Russia in that movie because it's just baked in to the veneer of the film. It's assumed
100%. Yes. Just like it's like they didn't have to put English subtitles for an English movie because it's like, who needs that other than a handful of people? Yeah, you're completely right that they code this in a way that it's obvious what's happening here. From the Red Star on the enemy planes to them being MiGs, which is the Russian fighter, to the generic location of Indian Ocean. So this is way out in that other part of the world where it's a little bit more of a hot zone than here, and Russian allies throughout the Middle East and Indian subcontinent. Like it's a messy thing. And you're right. None of that is explained. They don't talk about anything specific because they just don't have to. It's crazy that I hadn't
They
realized
didn't.
that.
They didn't have to. Let me correct you. They didn't have to. Watching it now.
Oh, I thought that's what I said.
No. You said they don't have to. They should have. Is my point.
Oh, I see.
Because watching it now, it's like it's lost.
Right. So I can see it feeling like a generic enemy, like, to somebody
as
now.
Opposed to Rocky IV, where it's like, yes, Russians are the bad guy, but they still take the time to create an icon, like an emblem, an avatar of Russia, which is Drago. In Top Gun, they don't even bother, and they never do any work to create the adversary. It's just assumed, and watching it 30 years later, you're like, what?
Yeah, but I mean, that was the reality at the time.
I understand that. I know, but it just makes for kind of a crappy adversary later.
You know, that's an interesting thing, though. Like in terms of general history analysis, that I know I've talked about some of this stuff before, but losing that feeling is a perfect example where, for whatever reason, whether it's generational or whatever, a person looking at a thing now gets a very different mood from it than a person looking at it as it happened, or, you know, when the letter got written versus reading it 100 years later. There are all sorts of baked in things that were obvious and didn't need to be said in the original that the person later on just, they don't see, and they don't know that they don't see.
Right.
Now, I remember we talked at one point about like the known unknowns and the unknown unknowns and all of that. But this is a really interesting example of it, where 100 years from now, somebody can be watching that movie and it would not occur to them necessarily what specific conflict that was tied to, because it's just not in the movie.
It's just subtext. It's subtext. That's it. It's the subtext of the movie. So. Yeah, I mean, I will also, it's funny that this movie has a kind of a hot or cold reaction to it, because there are a few people who I've asked who are also really cold on it. And they're like, that movie sucks. Or, I cannot make it, 15 minutes through that movie. And then we have like staunch supporters on your side, and you're one of them. Who say it's awesome, it's great, it's a classic. And I just find that really interesting. And that is actually why I thought it was a good idea to even have an entire discussion about this, because if we all agreed it was good or we all agreed it was bad, well, that's not very interesting. But the fact that it has created a bit of like a bifurcation, I guess, is interesting to me as to like, well, why do people land on one side of the thing and why do others land on that other side of the old Top Gun aisle? It's a divisive blockbuster classic film.
It is a 2 or a 10 to people, and not a whole lot in between. We want to help you make something and mean something. And we say that phrase all the time because when you're making something and you know it means something, even if it's just to you, that's when you feel pretty good about what you're creating. The support for the Create Unknown in recent weeks has been incredible. Animators, artists, musicians, YouTubers, aspiring filmmakers, comedians, it is crazy how talented everybody in this community is. Consider joining the Create Unknown Patreon. Every dollar that comes through goes straight into the podcast and its community. That means more highlights videos. It means a big Minecraft project that's on the way. And eventually we'd like to manufacture custom piss bottles so you never have to leave your battle station. And being a patron unlocks participation in all of our live recordings. You've seen the roster of guests we've had. Having access to their minds is a unique opportunity. You can go to patreon.com/thecreateunknown or click the link that's in the description. Every little bit helps, and your support means absolutely everything to us. Patreon.com/thecreateunknown, links in the description. We appreciate you, Space Cowboys. But I do really briefly want to tell you, you know how as we were talking about this the other day, I was like, I had the worst date of my life is related to Top Gun.
What?
Like, hands down, the worst date of my life is related to Top Gun. And I wanted, I hadn't told you that story in the past, so I wanted to do it briefly here. Okay. This was 2002. I remember it distinctly because for reasons that will become obvious here. I forget how I met this girl. It was a first date thing, and we going to admit this part. I wanted to go to a place called Our House. This is in Boston, in the Alston-Cambridge side of things. There were 2 Our Houses. One was further downtown and one was out my way. I wanted to go to Our House because in the afternoons and the summers, with most of the college kids gone, they ran 50% off apps and $2 Brewbaker beers. So I'm like, oh, this will be a nice, like, pubish, first date where we can talk, and it's going to be really cheap. And I love the like loaded fries there. So I'm in money saving mode. But yeah, like 3 minutes into this thing, the girl's like, oh, what'd you do today? And I was doing something on my computer all day long, but it wasn't intensive. And I wish I could remember the specific thing. But anyway, I had the TV on in the background, and TNT was playing Top Gun constantly back in those days. So yeah, I was like, oh, I did whatever. And I watched Top Gun, and the girl's like, what? You actually watched that movie? I'm like, yeah, I mean, it's a popular one. It doesn't occur to me that there's any problem with watching Top Gun. And we do this like, you really did?
You really watched one of the most famous movies of all time?
Yeah, exactly. That's at a point. I'm like, I said something like that. It's like, yeah, this is just like kind of a classic. And that's why TNT put it on, whatever.
It's not Gummo.
Yeah, it's not like fringe, difficult, controversial stuff, But she starts really like building energy about supporting the military industrial complex and how I'm a sheep for being like a fan of this movie. And it's getting louder and louder, like somebody's slowly turning up the dial. She's getting more animated, and it's like one pure rant. And as it's happening, I'm sitting there saying nothing because you can't interrupt that. And it's so crazy that it doesn't even seem real. It seemed like somebody really doing a bit and like trying to have fun. So I started laughing because I thought it was fake. But yeah, at a point she's screaming about it. I said the 2002 part because this was the summer after 9/11, and there was a tremendous amount of anti-war sentiment in Boston among the college kids. And I guess she was very strong in that movement and could not handle the fact that somebody she was across the table from had watched TNT screening Top Gun in the background on like a Wednesday. Yeah. So anyway, she's like, it reached the peak of screaming at me, and she just walked out, and that was it.
And that was it. She just left.
That was it. Just left. I'd say I got ghosted, but it was like, I didn't even have a cell phone in that era. So like ghosting, the extent of that was like not responding to an AOL instant message. Like it wasn't, crazy. Like, and then I never heard from her again. Like, cause no, I just wouldn't, but it was absolutely insane. And like the whole place was looking at me, like what is going on at this table? Because when she's just loud and angry, you think that the person on the other end of that has done something to make it happen.
Absolutely. Yeah. You're a bad guy.
It looked like, she just like discovered my other family I'd been hiding or something.
Right.
But yeah, eventually she got loud enough that she's screaming about military shit and just all of these things and walks out. So yeah, I mean, I just kind of sat there, and the waiter came over and he's like, are you okay? Like, asked me if I was. Like, yeah, I don't know what happened here at all. Like, I have no words for you right now.
Hold on. So during her monologue, did you interject at all to try to like, calm her down or like, in any way help the situation? Or was it full bore, just her ranting until she left?
At the beginning,
like, did anything that you say make her madder?
No.
Like,
no,
nothing.
No. No, because I mean, when she started on that, I kind of sputtered like, hey, well, all the shit you do in that situation, but it wasn't anything coherent or like, I didn't like, grab onto her and put her down, sit her back down or something like, no, none of that. I basically just sat there kind of processing what was happening because it was so strange and so out of the blue. that I was sincerely confused and stunned by it. So yeah, this is probably the first time I've talked about and admitted to watching Top Gun in 20 years.
Oh, this is
because
such
of
the
trauma, the trauma I experienced.
Experience to admit that you like this extremely popular and famous and iconic film. I can't imagine.
It was cool though.
Getting
it was cool because sorry, I cut you off on that.
Well, I'm just going to say I can't imagine getting that mad kind of by myself. Like usually when you get mad, there's an exchange. There's a, why did you do this? Because I thought of that. And how could you do this?
Right.
Like things build naturally in an argument. How do you just kind of do that by yourself?
That was precisely the confusing part to me. And like, I know that everybody is the hero in their own story. And I haven't said anything that would incriminate me here or make it sound like I was the cause of this at all. I am being completely sincere and honest when I say I did absolutely nothing that would escalate this, egg it on, bring it about in the first place, which is what made it so shockingly bizarre. Like, once that died down, I've got a bunch of appetizers. I have a 16-ounce bottle of beer for $2. And I lived like 100 steps from this place around the corner. So I went home really quick, and on the landline, I called one of my friends, and I'm like, you will not believe what just happened to me. Get to our house and let's, drink beer and eat appetizers, and I'll tell you about it. So a couple of my friends did end up coming out, and we had a ball, and that was awesome. But the whole thing was really twisted and bizarre. And like, I've seen surprising things and things that don't make sense, but that is the weirdest one that I never saw coming. And it was 100% due to Top Gun.
Yeah. A movie that played in syndication on TBS. And you had the goal to say that you periodically would glance over and watch the thing.
Pretty much.
Holy cow. Yeah. I don't know. That
was a wild one.
The whole working yourself up is what is most interesting to me about that. Like that, to me, I can't even imagine. Like a snowball rolling down a mountain. You're just getting bigger and bigger and madder as you continue to go down. That's bizarre. That is bizarre.
Yes, it is. Yeah. Hey, people do that though, don't they? You can see it on Twitter sometimes when somebody will tweet and then it's a multi-tweet thread, and you can see them like progressively psyching themselves up as they tweet.
Right. Getting madder.
Responding to them.
Right.
Yeah, they're getting more pissed about the thing, even though nobody is commenting at all. And then by the end, they're 9 tweets in and frothing at the mouth, and it's totally their fault.
Yeah. I know that is a kind of an extension of thinking, I guess. So maybe this was her kind of thinking through this on her own for the first time. I don't know. I'm grasping at straws a little bit to try to understand how this could come about. But, people think by talking out loud a lot. Like some people really need to talk in order to think. I know that sounds weird, but there was like that meme where there's a girl who's like, my boyfriend says that he can hear his own voice in his head, and that freaked me out.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I'm saying? That meme.
Mm-hmm.
Well, some people need to talk aloud to really think through.
They do
their thoughts, and it was almost like she perhaps was really doing that, and you were bearing the brunt of it over some onion rings.
I think so, and it could be. I mean, again, I don't remember any specific. All I remember is that the girl had dark hair, and that she did not go to my school. She went to a different one. But so I can't remember like what led up to this at all, but maybe she'd set an expectation that I was very, very different as a person. And she was, jumping into just a differently temperatured pool. And then got super shocked when not necessarily that it was really, really bad, but that it was just different than what she'd prepared for.
Yeah. You short-circuited her brain.
It was strange though. Yeah. Whatever happened there, I don't want to say it made me nervous, for a long, long, long time, but kind of. I mean, it was like this recognition that anything can happen with anybody at any time. Like it felt like every person is capable of being a ticking time bomb of some kind. So that was a weird realization that came from it.
And the fuse
I don't
is
know if
Top
it's a healthy
Gun.
one. Well, it was the ultimate, like, you never really know what's going to tip somebody off or, not send them into a rage like it did in that example, but disappoint them or just whatever. You're not going to know. You're not going to see it coming at all. It's like, well, at least now I don't have to worry or stress about anything, because if it's all one giant crapshoot that I can't possibly get a sense of, then, why get all stressed about it?
Yeah, but dude, imagine you had the Top Gun revelation like 6 months into dating.
Oh,
that would have been so much worse.
No, that's real. That's real. I felt weirdly lucky right after, like minutes after this happened. Like once everything had calmed down and people were talking normally and like the restaurant was back to being what it was, and I'm like taking a few sips of beer and whatever, I'm like, wow, like the phrase dodging a bullet gets thrown around pretty often, but I really feel like I dodged one here.
Yeah.
Even if it was 2 hours into the night. Like, if this has to happen, I am so glad that this happened right out of the gate, because that's scary. Like, and in a public place too. Because you just don't want to be in a spot where, like, you're in an apartment building and somebody starts like screaming bloody murder, like that just comes with potential problems. So it was a good place for it to happen. It was good timing for it to happen. It just happened to be really insane.
Yeah, you dodged the gigantic bullet bill
I did.
From Super Mario World.
Yes.
Let's go and hit this Neil deGrasse Tyson thing real quick. We went a little longer on Top Gun, but I really kind of felt like we both said everything we wanted to say about that. Oh, no, let me button it by saying, like, hey, if you love Top Gun, more power to you. Bless you. It's got great
Are you going to watch the sequel? That's the last thing is, are you going to watch the sequel?
Unlikely, unless I'm told that I have to. I don't watch a lot of movies. Okay. I just don't anymore. So I know that we started this off by me watching movies, but I literally will watch a movie sometimes on like a weekend, every now and then. So when I do watch movies, and the reason I watch Top Gun is like I really like watching movies that I've missed, that I've heard a lot about. So that's why I watched Top Gun. I watched The Quick and the Dead. I'd never seen those films before. So
Quick and the Dead is great. I'm glad you saw that one.
Yeah,
it's
like
fun.
It's good. Yeah. It has that Sam Raimi cartoon, like madcap director style, which
it's a little over the top in a way that works.
It's what he does though. He's like one of the few directors where you can really tell his style. All right. Let's talk about talking about styles. Let's talk about Neil deGrasse Tyson's Twitter style, which is to poo-poo things that people like. So a couple of days ago, what was it, 2 nights ago, there was a lunar eclipse, which I'm a fan of. I think lunar eclipses are freaking cool. Whenever there is one, I go look at it and I say, wow, that's really neat. I really like it. It's a beautiful thing. I'm a big fan of the moon in general. I think the moon is quite beautiful. It has different phases, and I don't subscribe to following the moon's to following whatever the moon's doing to I don't know, alter my behavior, but at the same time I appreciate the thing. I like looking at it. Apparently Neil deGrasse Tyson is not impressed with lunar eclipses. I printed out 3 tweets that he made about it because only one of them went viral, but he did do 3 kind of further explaining sort of his stance on lunar eclipses being boring. Okay. So I'll just read them.
I didn't see the follow-ups. I just saw the initial thing that sparked the backlash.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so then this will be helpful. So I'll read them. I'll read the viral one last then, and I'll read the kind of like the background ones first. So the first one says, "Dear Earthlings currently in darkness. Right about now, the full moon is passing into Earth's conical shadow in space. The event is long and boring, lasting 3.5 hours. For the middle 84 minutes, the moon is all but fully darkened as it enters the deepest part of Earth's shadow." One tweet. Second tweet. unlike solar eclipses, which are location dependent, everyone on the side of Earth facing the full moon, i.e. the sun has set for you, can witness a lunar eclipse. That was tweet 2. And then the one that went, viral and trending and stirred people up was, lunar eclipses are so unspectacular that if nobody told you what was happening to the moon, you'd probably not notice at all. Just saying. He ends it with just saying, which is like such an annoying way to end, I think, almost any tweet that you're being kind of like smug about. But
that takes away any benefit of the doubt on him just being inarticulate with wording. When the just saying hits, you're like, okay, he meant every word of this.
That's right. So let's break down real quickly what's going on here. One is that Neil deGrasse Tyson thinks lunar eclipses are boring. He thinks they're unspectacular and uninteresting. And
that's fine, I suppose.
His reasons for that are that basically anybody can see them and that they kind of happen often. I think I missed a tweet. I think there was a 4th tweet where he said that they happen every 3 years or something like that. If I'm misremembering that, I'm sorry. I didn't write that one down. But essentially,
a lot of cool space stuff. I mean, I'm trying to work with him here and say that if he really thinks it sucks and that it's boring in the context of all the things he sees, maybe he's got a point. Maybe they rank low.
Yeah, well, I think that's fine. It's fine for him to have an opinion on lunar eclipses, for him to find them to be just uninteresting. They're not interesting to him. That's fine. I think what's weird is creating these sort of definitive, or at least definitive-like statements that I can't help, and everybody reacted this way, but I also can't help but feel, especially with that just saying, that he is saying, you're kind of an idiot if you like them. Like that's that way it comes across. It's like, you're an idiot if you think this is interesting. It's like, what? Why?
He should.
Why? Why
that's
even
the part
say
he
that?
should have just typed it out. He should have typed it out at the end, just saying, here's a thing I don't like. If you like it, you're stupid. Every reason you have for enjoying this thing is dumb. I don't know why he just didn't say it, because it was so clear from everything else that he wrote. It's not like it was the usual, kind of raining on the parade with facts. No, this was just, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
If you enjoy this simple pleasure in life, you are a subhuman moron.
Yeah. This, simple pleasure of this dance between the earth and the moon and the sun. If you like this, you're dumb.
What do you think is the end game on that? Why do you think?
I was going to ask you. How dare you turn that to me? Yeah, because exactly. What's the point? That is the question. What is the end goal? What is the point of doing this tweet? So here, I guess a couple of options. One is that it seems like there's this kind of hipster vibe to it, where it's like, I know what's really cool about space and about, celestial bodies and different sort of events like this. And like the normie popular thing really is lame. Like that's definitely one option here, where he's trying to build himself up, I guess, as being like, I'm cooler than you because I know what events in this domain, which is his domain, what events in my domain are actually interesting. This isn't one of them. Okay.
No, the chat here is, there's some just strong points in it. Dan the Latch saying what they say, astronomy is fun when you're not an astronomer. That I think undergirds a lot of his points, that it's like that people should know that it's more than just goofy fun stuff that you look at. Like, I guess there's some validity in believing that. I don't know. APM says that it's likely an ego move. I'm sure there's a component there, because nobody is that guy so consistently on Twitter as NDT. He's embraced it. He wants to be that guy. There's got to be some ego element at play there, just to even be comfortable being that guy. It's puzzling though. It's really tough, and it's to me a really juvenile way of looking at the issue. That's like, if I shame somebody for being stupid, they will internalize their stupidity and then want to get smarter and not be stupid anymore.
No one reacts
I don't think that
way.
happens very often. Yeah,
No.
that's not the reality at all. At
not
least
how
not
humans
most of the
work.
time. It isn't. And maybe it works. Like, the shame and embarrassment factor of it is, it's really common for people to think that's a great motivator. And sometimes it is. But on issues like this, like, no, there's no turnaround there that somebody's going to experience with any usefulness and in any speed. It's just going to piss them off and very likely do more harm than good. How many people have unfollowed him after the hot takes, or have tuned him out to some degree, over the last couple of years? It's totally possible that that's happened. And I'm sure he sacrificed a bit of his presence. And it's like, I follow a lot of educational people for reasons. And there's a point at which I think if somebody does something that's really newsworthy or groundbreaking or something, it's going to get to me. I don't have to follow them on Twitter, for example, and keep up with them because it's all of the same stuff here, or if it's so notable, then I'll end up reading about it anyway. And that's how I felt after the 80 billionth hot take. It's like, I'll step aside here and somebody else can fill that void on my feed. And, if there's anything important, I'll hear about it.
But the first question that I asked, and the first thing I thought is, why make people feel bad for having an interest in the thing that you have dedicated your life towards? It's like, dude, that is freaking weird to shut down an opportunity for people to connect with the thing that you love. Like, imagine, I don't know, any sort of analogy, like a baseball player telling people that home runs are stupid. Or like, I don't know. Any sort of example in which like people are trying to connect with you on your thing and you're like, that you're dumb if you like this for that reason. Like, really?
Yeah.
Why?
It's funny that you use that example.
Is it a gatekeeping thing? I don't know.
I think there's a gatekeeping part for sure. Yeah, Andre says this in the chat too, gatekeeping science. It's definitely there. Like, delineating the difference between serious and casual seems to be a thing there. And I feel like he's doing that. It's like, if you have a ball with the lunar eclipse and you enjoy it, you are a tier 1 science person. If, you have the higher understanding of it not being so rare and this and that, you're a serious science person. You mentioned baseball things like this absolutely happened, and it still happens now, but with the introduction of a different set of metrics that some people said mattered a lot more. And there were conversations like that. It's like, oh, you think that batting average is what matters? You're kind of an idiot and you don't understand that we need to look more at on-base percentage. And it doesn't matter how you get on base, as long as you're on. That's the object of the game. Oh, you think you need to hit it? Everybody spent 100 years worrying about batting average. Well, you're an idiot like that. It tended to cement the opinions like, no, I like the old style of things better, as opposed to making them think, oh, I guess I do have a really superficial, idiotic understanding of the thing I love. Let me reflect completely on everything I believe. Like, no, that didn't happen. 20 years later, it's taken a little bit more seriously than it was. It's something that everybody accepts. 20 minutes after that conversation, like, nothing had changed except somebody liked you a lot less than they did before. That's the big change that's happening here is somebody hates you now. That's
how I think about it. And not even hates the person, hates the communicator, but perhaps hates the discipline. It's like, if you're going to crap on level 1 understanding of this thing and tell someone they're dumb for liking that, they'll never go to level 2. Why would
It's
they?
really unlikely. And if they
It's-
do, the motivations are going to be weird. Everything that undergirds it is going to be strange.
You just made them feel bad for really for no reason. But he does this all the time. And the other
Does this a
option
lot,
I was
yeah.
gonna say is like it's just an attention grab. He
Well, it's
knows
valid.
that if he
Keeps him
plays
relevant.
plays contrarian to things, it will garner attention rather than just being a cheerleader. You can be a critic,
Yeah,
and more
that's
people will pay
fair.
attention to you.
Yeah,
It's
and
got to play some
the
role.
really funny thing to me is I forget, and I don't have the tweets up in front of me now, but there are parts of it that would have been awesome to know. And the people who enjoyed, who enjoy the thing, the people who he's basically calling stupid, would have appreciated the little factoids surrounding the lunar eclipse, and it would have been a positive moment for everyone, and people would have liked it. He made so many conscious little steps to make sure that did not happen. That,
But then nobody pays attention, perhaps. And that's his, maybe that's his perspective, is that he drops some factoids about a lunar eclipse. No one retweets it. He's a gigantic jerk about it. It goes viral. I mean, that I'm giving him the benefit of the doubt here. Maybe it's not that manipulative, but maybe it is. Maybe that's the point.
What would you tweet about? What's the thing? So you go full mask off on Vsauce 2. You start making tweets like this. What do you tweet about to just totally shit on everybody?
Oh man, I don't even know.
With no consequences.
It's a hard question.
You pay
for me
no
to
price
answer.
for this.
Yeah, because it's not something I ever think about. So I don't have an answer.
It's really
for
not you.
No, I'm
It's
like,
not
I
you
don't
at
know.
all. I would rip on food. I mean, because it really does blow my mind what people spend on food just to eat things that don't even taste very good. There's a lot of shitting on food that I would do in that circumstance. Now, nobody would really care about that. But that's like a general, like, it's not going to get you in too much trouble. And I do want to point out that, like, this was a hot take about a lunar eclipse. This was not like Russia-Ukraine hot take.
Right.
It didn't hurt anybody. It didn't cause any harm. As far as hot takes go, it's totally irrelevant. And I would stick to that class of things where I'm not going to comment on any too serious issue. It would be like, actually, you're complaining about the price of something you shouldn't even be buying anyway. Like, you're an idiot for buying this. Who cares that it doubled in price?
Yeah. I guess at worst, his tweets discourage scientific inquiry from people who otherwise would have been interested in it.
Is there a video game thing that you would call out? That's a good, like, low stakes, but still controversial thing.
Not really. No, not really. I think that perhaps I would maybe rip on creators I don't like. I think that's probably the worst thing I could possibly think of. Is that would be, I guess, my mask off moment is just
that's not bad.
Ripping YouTubers who I don't like particularly or their content very much.
That would be cool.
That'd probably be it. Everything else though, man, I don't care enough about to.
Neither do I. Yeah.
Like go crazy about, like, which is why it's so funny to me hearing about your story about this date and this girl going nuts about the Top Gun movie. It's like, I can't imagine getting so worked up over almost anything, outside of like serious damage to like my friends and family, like something that's like obviously worth defending. Like there's not a long list of things I would go ballistic over. Like me complaining about Top Gun being bad is for fun. Like that's just for fun. Like I don't, it's just to have a fun discussion. I don't actually like think the movie should never be seen or, I don't hate the movie. It's fine. Like it's totally fine. It's okay. I didn't really enjoy it, but it's fine. Yeah. I'm not mad about it.
And that's totally valid. This is, the other thing about that situation is you're saying I can't come up with a long list of things that would make me freak out to that degree. I don't know what I would stick around and scream for. There are a bunch of things where I can see something could offend somebody or match so poorly that they'd think, I really want to get out of here now. But then they do that. Like, there's a list of stuff that would make you get up from the table and leave, be like, sorry, I've got to go. But what makes you stand up and start like crescendo screaming about a thing rather than just plain leaving? And that's a really small list of things. You're so pissed off or upset that you've got to leave, but you're going to stay to demonstrate it.
You're going to build a soapbox for you to stand on while you, scream from the top of your lungs and cause a huge scene over. Like, holy cow, I don't know. Especially because, oh man, I was just thinking earlier today how fatigued I am. And I know, and I even thought about how ironic it is to talk about this amidst, like, during a podcast in which we're presenting our opinions on something as kind of frivolous as an 80s action movie, but just fatigued by people's opinions in general.
Yeah.
And I mean that in the most general sense, like at the highest level. Like, I'm so tired of everybody's opinions on everything. No matter, especially, I guess it's probably more big issues even than small issues. Maybe the smaller stuff I am still interested in because it's kind of fun to, it's still fun to kind of argue over why, Top Gun is good or bad, as opposed to, some like gigantic, impossibly complex situation that people seem to be completely sure about the right answer to. All the while, it's just plainly obvious that all they're doing is satisfying their own ego and, personality traits and what goals in life, like whatever it is that align with the thing that they're sure is the right answer. It's like, I am really exhausted by that. Because it goes nowhere.
I think it doesn't go anywhere. Conrad, I think what people need to understand is that other people almost never care what you think about anything, and they shouldn't. They don't have a reason to at all. And that's the fatigue that I've got with everybody's opinion on everything, is that I have no interest in what that person thinks about anything serious. Twitter is a good example of how this breaks down, because there are a handful of people that I follow them specifically because I care about what they think about an issue or a genre. And so I do have this distinction. Like, here's a list of people that I follow because I care what they think. And then there is everyone else. The list of everyone else is literally like 99.x% of the overall follows. I never really care at all. I don't even care when somebody's directly involved in something, because usually their perspective sucks for one reason or another. And it's just a drop in the bucket of like the entire bit of opinion I need to be exposed to on a subject. But it is constant. And it was such a kind of freeing realization in getting time back when I realized, like, nobody really cares what I think about anything. I don't have to post about any of it. I can do literally anything else right now. I can do everything. Everything is possible because I don't have to do this thing that nobody cares about. But yeah, I don't know why they think their opinions really matter on the stuff. I know mine don't. I don't know why they think theirs do.
Well, and it's not only that, I guess, for me, is that I also just almost inevitably can see exactly right through the fact that no matter what the topic is, their opinion on it is 100% self-serving. They almost never actually understand the issue that they're so sure about. If they do, it's only in the most rudimentary or like surface level kindergarten understanding of a topic. Yeah. And it's exhausting. It's just so tiring to see it over and over and over again. And that's kind of like all. And I just wonder how much of people bowing out of social media is as a result of that, is if they don't really know what else to say, if they're not talking about those things, and the discussions never go anywhere anyway. It's just so much hot air.
Vladimir Lemon says in the chat, the Dunning-Kruger mosh pit. That is such a good phrase.
That's good.
Yeah, I like that. I don't know. I do get the sense that people want more frivolous stuff. So like there's been a tremendous surge in the number of animal meme accounts on Twitter over the last 12 months. I follow a bunch of cat ones, which by the way, some of those go hard political. And I've just had to unfollow because I'm not interested at all. I just want the cat pictures, and there are a lot of places that give me cats. But I think that satisfies, like animals with captions and memes you should show your cat, or you wish you could show your cat. Like all these accounts are really awesome. I think it's what more people want than like, here's what I think about Ukraine despite never having been there. 37 volume thread. I dealt with this so long ago. Number one, being elsewhere with people who had opinions about the US despite not having been there or only been to one or two parts of a wildly complex place. And then after years and years of that, coming back, and now it's people here talking about places and people that they have literally no experience with at all. Everybody's gotten an opinion on Israel and Palestine, for example. Very few people have spent, a year or two there. Very few people have spent 2 weeks there. So, I got used to that a long time ago. So I do tune it out automatically. But I like the people who gravitate away from that stuff and toward the frivolous. I want to talk to a sniping soup. When I do want real information, I want it to be a Rick Beato level expert, somebody who is uniquely positioned to be awesome. I don't want, the in-between. The in-between people, I want to get to know them as people, and I want to have fun with them and laugh with them, and maybe they help me and I help them, whatever. I want normal human social interaction. Nothing serious or high level. It's not what I want from them.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, that distinction that you make. I think one distinction that I would make really quickly is what I'm tired of is just somebody says something stupid and then there's a gabillion responses that are just like, hey, look at how stupid this was. Like, okay, like that's just not very interesting, as opposed, and this is the distinction that I'll make. What I find interesting, which is pretty obvious from this podcast, is if somebody like Neil deGrasse Tyson says something that a lot of people think is stupid, I'm interested in kind of dissecting what happened, perhaps what were the motivations, what was stupid about it, give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe it wasn't so stupid, like actually thinking about it is interesting. I do find that thinking about things interesting. Just kind of reacting to them with, like a lizard brain, I find really pretty boring. And just saying, this
just
guy's
so it
an
can go
idiot.
nowhere.
It's like, yeah, okay. Yeah. Who isn't an idiot? Where's your list of non-idiots? It's like everybody's an idiot in some way. Like, I'm sorry to say. So
if you don't think they are, you don't know them well enough. That's what it comes down to. If
your projection
anybody
of them.
is, you're just not, you're not informed. You will be, but you're not right now.
No, you're just hanging on to this immaculate projection of the person who is not an idiot. Well, sorry. Everybody's an idiot at some point about something, or actually a lot.
Conrad did bring up the creator clash. Did you follow along with that?
I had some family stuff that I needed to do, so I wasn't able to watch it. But I saw it on Twitter because several of our past guests were boxers during the creator clash.
As managers, as talent managers here, we did extremely well. I think 3-1 is, especially with iDubbbz doing quite well in that loss. He was pretty respectable there, and as far as the L's go, that one was quite good.
We're good scouts.
So
we're good talent scouts.
We are. But everybody's talking about Dad, Nathan Barnett. Wow, did he come out crazy?
Was anybody
really
surprised
impressive
by that? If you're shocked that Nathan Barnett came out like a wild animal. Have you not watched his content over the past like dozen years or so? The dude is a beast. He's an athletic freak.
He was ripped too. Like he posted progress photos leading up to this on Twitter and elsewhere, and he was really. I mean, he is extremely in shape.
Freak.
He put some muscle mass on. Yeah, I mean, he had like that kind of lanky athleticism, super flexible, all that, which he's had that forever. I mean, that's why he does what he does. But he put on raw power and muscle in the last few months. And yeah, it was kind of crazy seeing how quickly, 22 seconds, I think it was, they stopped the fight.
Yeah, but even his personality, I mean, that guy's a ball of energy. I would never step into the ring with somebody like that. He's like a caged animal. And you just open up the door and he goes wild. Like if you've watched his boxing match with Matt Watson, it played out exactly as I thought it was. Nathan just went total beast mode, and it was over quite quickly because it's hard to, unless Matt kind of like turtled up and did a rope-a-dope. That would have been my strategy, I suppose. But I don't think Nathan would get tired. He's just such an energetic,
not for a long time. Yeah,
ball of muscle. I don't even know how you rope-a-dope that guy. There's not enough rounds.
No.
You can't get into round 11 and have him be punched out. It's only 3 rounds anyway, or whatever it was.
Michael Reeves impressed people. I Did a Thing won his fight with his 292-inch reach. I thought he cut an imposing figure. Physically, he's just so tall. He's just like a normal person in proportions, but just larger. He's basically like a super soldier.
Yeah, he's a beast, definitely. So yeah, we had all 3 of those guys won, and then iDubbbz went the distance and really was respectable against somebody that he had very little. I mean, he shouldn't have been in the ring with that dude, with the old doctor there.
I'd say the doctor had a head start on the athletic side of this. That's how I'd put it. That Ian was playing a little bit of catch up from the get-go.
The dude has fought, he was like an amateur boxer from what I understand. Had like 10 fights already, and this was iDubbbz first, so it was incredibly lopsided matchup.
Well, who won in Rocky 1? Not Rocky. That's the important thing that we need to remember here is our boy went the distance and narrowly came up short, and that does set the stage for 5, 6 sequels, spin-off franchises, everything. I'm excited.
Yeah, Rocky 2 is looming. I don't know. They're already talking about putting together another one, so it'll be interesting to see what they do. It'll be interesting to see who else they get. I know I've seen several creators who are dead serious on doing it. Chris Raygun being one of them, who is a TCU alum, is dead set on doing a match. So I don't know. We'll see. We couldn't make it to this one. Perhaps we'll make it to a future one. But yeah, I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see what kind of the shelf life for this thing is. If it's a flash in the pan novelty, or if this is just the beginning, perhaps, of something that just grows and grows and grows. I can see it going either way.
Seemed to go well. Yeah, I don't know if we're gonna get CC numbered like UFCs, where it's up in the hundreds. But I do think that we're going to get 2 or 3 of these. The momentum seems pretty good. My feeds everywhere were just loaded with some version of, wow, this is legit and it's way better than the shit show I expected. That was the rundown from virtually everybody. They were impressed by the quality of the fights, that they were real, which meant the participants took it seriously. Before this, it was like watching Deji fight and, show up to the ring, clearly not having taken training seriously, and then, losing. I just don't think anybody thought it would be real. And literally everybody on the card seems to have come out and proven them wrong. So that's cool. There's definitely going to be another one of these, I think.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to me to see who they get going forward, because it does seem like a narrow slice of it's like I don't know, we'll see, but it seems to me like it'd be a kind of a shallow pool to draw from for fighters who are A, like interested in doing it, B, have enough of a following that the promoters are interested in putting them on the card. And then C, kind of have the time to put in to do some training. There's a lot kind of needs to come together. And, they pulled it off once. I'm sure they'll pull it off twice. We'll see if they pull it off 20 more times, or if it, has its day in the sun and then sets, and then it's kind of a fun thing that we remember.
I'm intrigued and I'm excited to see what they do with it. And I'm pulling for them on this because it's so unique. Nobody's really done anything like this in this space. It's really cool. They pulled it off. I'm excited.
Is any part of it weird that we're now just kind of like fighting each other? Is there a comment here about society, or no? Are we just going to let that go? Are we not ready to think about it?
Do you remember that card from the early 50s I showed you from a trading card set called Wild Man, depicting the last bare knuckle bout?
Yeah.
Yeah. There are big changes that are happening, because 70 years ago, it was like, wow, look at this intensely barbaric thing that we used to do. We're so much better than that now. And then now one of the biggest things going is essentially not even bare knuckle boxing, just like fighting in all manners, doing pretty much anything. And I don't think that happens by accident. And it does seem completely normal that it's like, who's going to fight next? I like the idea in the chat of the Vsauce 1, 2, and 3 round robin match. Or just all three at once, and just the last man standing is the sauce.
Yeah, I don't know. But it's not just the YouTubers boxing, the Paul brothers have been doing it for years now. Yeah. And a lot of celebrities are doing it. A lot of former pro athletes are doing it. It's a thing, and it's becoming more of a thing. And again, I'm not sure. I don't know. I'm not ready to comment upon what that means or why it's happening, but it seems like we're at a moment in time in which we all have so much to entertain us. So many options for entertainment, whether it's streaming media and music and YouTube and video games and your phone and social media, and the list is absolutely endless. You can make whatever you want and you can consume whatever you want, and fighting is what we want. I don't know.
I think all the possible things you could choose from. Fighting that is more barbaric and raw than what was allowed 30 years ago, 40 years ago. That's what you take off the shelf with your gift certificate for anything in the store. You regressed the caveman.
I don't know. Well, boxing's been around forever, but they have brought back bare knuckle fighting. That there is a league for that now. There are like a billion MMA leagues and more starting all the time. Khabib Nurmagomedov has his own now. Eagle FC, I think it's called. Yeah, he started his own. Other former MMA guys are kind of starting their own promotions. Yeah, I don't know. But now it's the YouTubers' turn. And, iDubbbz and everybody else, they pulled off a big event. A lot of people that we know went to it, not just obviously the people who were in the ring, but a lot of people just outside the ring and supporting people. And I could see it as a weird replacement for VidCon in terms of being a gathering place.
I bet it's better. Yeah, I agree with that completely.
Of course better. No, definitely better. But VidCon was the standard in the past, and I think that ship has sailed, and this will fill the void in a bigger, better way. This Creator Clash stuff.
It could certainly build into that kind of hub. I think there's a little bit of a vacuum to be filled. Obviously, we'll know in a month how things are going for the first time in years. But But I will say the buzz is different, where it's like, hey, we don't necessarily have to come out here for this just so a bunch of TikTok people can run around. Well, yeah, they could refocus that and redirect it to a completely different event that has a different ethos and mood and draw. Like the fact that there's a specific thing you'd see at that event, because it is an event, as opposed to like VidCon. There's like a fake prom for 13-year-olds on the final night of a thing.
Yeah.
Like there is no payoff event. There's no thing that everybody does and shares that's like the unifying, like big fireworks moment, whatever. Whereas this would at least have one thing that everybody's seeing.
It goes back to what we were talking about with Beato, about the lack of kind of communal events. You know, when we were talking about that, really kind of as it relates to music first, and then sort of like of entertainment in general. But that plays a role exactly in what you're talking about, is that it creates a communal event. Everybody can talk about that's there. People who aren't there can vicariously experience. It makes a big difference. So it makes a lot of sense. It's just interesting to me that boxing might be the only thing that can pull that off. Like there's no major dodgeball game that everybody is like flying out for. I don't think.
You know, there should be that
a dodgeball game.
You could. Yeah. Yes. And yes, Conrad says YouTube Kabaddi. I would support that. But no, wouldn't that be amazing? Like rather than see, you can only have so many people fight, and only so many people want to like engage in actual combat. However, wouldn't it be incredible to see a dodgeball match between like 20 creators?
Yeah.
You if somebody asked you to be on a dodgeball team for something like this, you'd do it.
This is actually a really good idea. As long as I was on Marquez Brownlee's team.
Yeah, he's
because
banned
that
from the
team,
sport. I'm banning him.
That team is winning. I don't care who's on the other team. MKBHD is the last man standing in any dodgeball. This is a good idea, though. I like this idea.
It would be amazing. Yeah, and it would work in a bunch of people who, you know, are like not top tier athletes, but also for whatever reason don't want to train to be. You know, you really had to commit the way those guys did for
dodgeball. You could just show up
for the fighting. Dodgeball, yeah, it would be nice probably to train a bit, but you could just show up, and the expectations are also not high. Like a bad fight is bad. People kind of playing dodgeball like shit is still going to be really entertaining.
There's a goofiness to it that's built in that reduces shame. And there's certainly can be shame in boxing. If you get knocked out badly, like everyone's going to clown on you forever about that. You know, if you get knocked out of a game of dodgeball, nobody cares.
Yeah. No, it's a funny moment. So this is our pitch. Is it okay to say this is our pitch, the official Create Unknown pitch, that the next Creator Clash have a dodgeball match somewhere
game
on the card? Yeah, a YouTuber dodgeball game with like 24 people.
I might have some messages to send after this episode.
It's such a good idea
to pitch this idea.
Because like you said, we know 1 million people who are in the audience for that. There are definitely enough YouTube people there to field a league, let alone 2 teams. There were a lot of people, and it would be a cool way to activate them.
Yeah. All right. Well, I have my homework assignment for the week is pitch Ian on the Creator Clash dodgeball game. This is a genuinely good idea. Let's tie this thing up in a nice bow. If you like Top Gun, God bless you. It's not a movie for me, but that's okay. That's what makes us all different and unique, and beautiful. So continue to enjoy that movie. For those of us who don't, we can just watch something else. It's really quite okay. And I think that's about it. Do you have any other parting messages?
If you enjoy lunar eclipses, you are a subhuman moron.
Thank you.
So it's okay. It's okay not to like Top Gun, but if you do like lunar eclipses, then yeah, you don't deserve air.
You're no longer allowed to engage in the discipline of scientific inquiry. if you'd like lunar eclipses. We'll be back. We'll be back next week with Blame Society Films, Aaron Yonda and Matt Sloan.
Yeah.
True OGs of the YouTube platform. Yeah, maybe we can get Matt to do the baby cookie voice. We're out of here. Thanks for hanging out with us this week. It was good to have a guestless episode and just kind of share our thoughts. Thanks to all of our baby gang and patrons for hanging out with us here in the episode chat. If you want to become one of them, the true, the proud, the elite, then just go to patreon.com/thecreateunknown. All right, we are out of here. See you, Space Cowboys.
Thanks for listening to The Create Unknown. We make this show with the support of our patrons. 100% goes directly to keeping episodes going every week, and we've been shocked by all the new support this year. The world's ending and I'm late for work. Gib Tom, Sid Poke, Demetrius, Atrocious Guff. You guys really do make this show happen. Thank you to the Tots and Dumpster crew, old and new, who save tiny little lives every month. And thank you to our grizzled, battle-hardened child infantry. Jen Mefasanti, Kevin Menard, Mikhail Steinke, Risebread, Sean Malone, Triple Question Mark, Ryan, Kamikaze, Maria, Marco Sheep, Tom Videogre, Jelksies, and Dan the Latch. And a tremendous shout out to our elite baby gang commanders, Linus and Trevstead, Boromir, Bot Dogs, Chinchilla, Isaac, Conrad, James, Andrew, Jeff Davis, Patrick Pister, Baseweight, Monahim, Dojangles, and Zero. You really are the elite. Thank you as well to our indentured servants, producer-editor Ben Webster, Discord savior Latterman, and producer emeritus Dan Yoshua. And thanks to Baseweight for the use of Created in the Unknown for the opening theme, and to Electro Voice for giving us mics to sound good on top of it. The Create Unknown is an Unknown Media production in partnership with Studio 71.